Tonight, you lie down asleep, and 30 other people lie down right beside you. No walls, no door, no lock, just skin, breath, and firelight everyone can see. Every whisper, every secret, every fight, the whole camp hears it. There's nowhere to hide. A cough, a cry, someone's temper snapping in the dark. In a camp like this, no sound stays a secret for long. So how did ancient humans ever get a moment truly alone? The answer will change how you see your own bedroom door. This is Nock, and tonight, like every night, he sleeps in a room with no walls at all. Beside him, a wolf pup named Ash, who has exactly zero concept of personal space either. Nock's world has no bedrooms, no bathrooms, no curtains. And yet, somehow, privacy still exists here. You lock a door because you don't trust the world to look away. Nock never had that option. So he built privacy a different way, not with walls, but with something far harder to fake. For nearly all of human history, people slept in bands of 15 to 30, one big, tangled family. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent years living with the Kalahari's Kongsan and found no private bedrooms anywhere. Huts stood only a few feet apart, close enough to smell the neighbor's fire, close enough to hear them breathe. Children slept beside their parents every single night. There was no other place to put them, which meant kids saw everything: arguments, tears, even their parents' most private moments. Ash covers his eyes with a paw. Even the wolf pup learned to look away. By modern standards, this sounds impossible. No secrets, no solitude, no space to just be alone. Today, the average person spends hours completely alone, behind a door nobody else can open. Nock never got that. And yet, researchers who study bands like his rarely describe them as miserable. In fact, here's the wild part. Many describe something almost the opposite: constant company, rarely loneliness. So the question isn't whether Nock had privacy. It's whether he needed the same kind you do. Even centuries later, kings and queens slept in halls full of servants. Real privacy is newer than almost anyone realizes. But here's something even stranger. Nock was almost never fully unwatched, even in his sleep. Sleep scientist David Sampson tracked modern hunter-gatherers night after night with tiny wrist sensors. At any given moment, roughly 1/3 of the whole camp was still awake or only half asleep. Across 13,000 minutes of recorded sleep, there were only 18 minutes when everyone slept at once. There was almost always someone awake, watching the dark for danger. Scientists call it the sentinel effect. Lions, hyenas, strangers in the dark. Someone always had to be listening. Sleep, back then, was a shared responsibility, which means Nock was never truly alone, but he was also never truly unprotected. Someone always had his back. You sleep alone behind a locked door. Nock slept surrounded, and somehow, that was the safer version. Privacy, it turns out, wasn't the point. Belonging was, and belonging came with its own kind of safety. Modern researchers have a name for what happens when that constant company disappears: an epidemic of loneliness. But here's the part everyone asks about. What about the most private moments of all? Sex, arguments, grief. None of it happened behind a door. It happened right there in the open. Anthropologists studying the Kongsan confirmed it plainly. Children regularly saw their parents having sex. Nobody was scandalized. Nobody whispered about it later. It simply happened, and the camp simply moved on. In your world, that thought is almost unbearable. In Nock's world, it was Tuesday. So how did anyone ever feel private at all? The trick wasn't hiding. It was pretending not to notice. Researchers Roberts and Gregor called it privacy without walls, a rule everyone silently agreed to follow. You don't look. You don't listen. You don't ask. That was the whole wall, made of good manners. You built your privacy from wood and locks. Nock's camp built theirs from trust. No locksmith required. Ash, of course, never got the memo. He stares at everything. Every culture has some version of this trick: a look, a cough, a sudden interest in the fire. This wasn't just kindness. Psychologist Altman argued privacy is a need every culture on Earth shares. Every society regulates it, some with walls, some with silence, some with a well-timed look away. Which means privacy was never really missing from Knox's world. It was just invisible, built entirely out of behavior, not brick. So privacy was never about being unseen. It was about being trusted enough not to be watched. Psychologists today still say the same thing. Everyone needs some form of alone time to feel human. It's a fragile kind of privacy, built entirely on the goodwill of 30 other people. And it worked. But here's proof this wasn't just talk. Ancient humans actually built something close to personal space. In 1989, archaeologist Danny Nadell of the University of Haifa uncovered a 23,000-year-old camp by a lake in Israel. Called Ohalo II, it held the oldest bedding ever found, woven grass, laid in careful rows around a fire. Nadell's team even found tiny gazelle bones and grass seeds pressed into the floor, the actual texture of one ordinary night. The hut had 3 zones, a hearth in the middle, a workspace, and a sleeping row along the wall. Each spot along that wall stayed remarkably consistent, as if it quietly belonged to the same person night after night. It wasn't a locked room, but it was his spot. And in a world with no doors, that mattered. Right beside the huts, Nadell's team found something else. A grave, arranged with quiet, personal care. Beads and ornaments were placed with the body. Small, deliberate choices about what belonged to whom. Even in death, this person got something like a private space, set apart, marked as theirs alone. You still do this today, the same seat at dinner, the same side of the bed. Knox started at first. 23,000 years later, the instinct hasn't changed. We all still claim a little territory of our own. Claim a spot. Return to it. Let it quietly become yours. That part of being human never needed walls at all. Quick pause. If this has surprised you so far, the next part flips privacy on its head completely. There was one kind of space in Knox's world set apart just for women, off limits to almost everyone else. During her first period, a girl in many hunter-gatherer groups moved into a hut built only for this. Among the beauty of Central Africa, she wasn't alone there. Her closest friends moved in with her for weeks. No men, no chores, no 30 mixed voices around the fire. Just her closest friends and quiet apart from the rest. For those weeks, the whole camp's rhythm bent around her. A rare moment when the group's needs waited on hers. Cultures across the world, from the Rockies to the Congo Basin, built something like this. Privacy, it turns out, comes in more than one shape. And when she came out, she wasn't just rested. She was seen differently, a woman now, not a child. Even Knock understood. The rarer something is, the more it means. Privacy, for them, was never wasted. Maybe that's the real lesson. Privacy hits hardest not when you have it constantly, but when you've earned it rarely. So, did ancient humans have privacy? Not the kind you're picturing. Not one they could lock behind them. What they had instead was harder to build and easier to lose. A whole community that agreed to look away. You protect your privacy with a lock. Knock protected his with 30 people who chose, every night, not to look. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Which version actually sounds more private to you? A lock only has to fail once. 30 people choosing kindness, night after night, rarely do. Ancient humans didn't invent walls. They invented something a lot harder, trust strong enough to replace them. Every morning, Knock woke up in the same open room as everyone else. And every morning, it was still enough. No walls, no locks, just people who trusted each other enough not to need them. Maybe the real trade isn't privacy versus none. It's privacy versus belonging, and Knock never had to pick. Same human, different world. You got the walls. He got the witnesses. Which one would you actually trade for the other? So tonight, when you close your bedroom door, remember, privacy is newer than you think and rarer than you'd guess. Tell us. Could you have handled a night with 30 roommates and 0 doors? Let us know below. Next time, what happened when two strangers from two different tribes met for the very first time? See you then.